the width goes away and from the bust and it goes down to the shoulder, to cross back, the shoulder to shoulder measurement. So that's the silhouette that we're going to see. Mari, just 1 second. I know you want to translate that.
Okay.
But Quinn, if we move to the next slide, then you will see actually the schematic. Okay, Mari.
Yes. 課題提出していただいて、ここにいらっしゃる皆さんは、皆さん、レベル3の方へ移行します。おめでとうございます。それで、これからデザインマスタークラスをやりますが、パート1の方、パート1は、クラシックボディの説明になります。クラシックボディというのは下から、裾からバストのところまで上がってバストから今度はショルダーのところへ、形を変えていきます。
Okay. So Quinn, next. All right, so this is just a look at the schematic for the classic body. The classic body usually has a set-in, always has a set-in sleeve, and that is the sleeve that you see on the side. We're going to go through a sleeve tonight, but we're not going to go through the entire sleeve. We will go through the cap during the next presentation, which is a week from today.
今見ていただいているのがクラシックボディのスケマティックと言われているものです。簡単な製図になります。左側の袖のところなんですけども、今日は、袖山の下までやります。で、パート2で、袖山に入ります。
Okay, Quinn, next. All right, so this is the format of the class. The first part is that we'll have about 45 minutes of just going through the classic body, and this is the classic body with a round neck. And then we'll have a little bit of a break, and then we'll come back and we'll go through the calculations formulas just to review, and then through sleeve planning. And as I said, the sleeve planning will not include a sleeve cap. And then any questions at the end.
今見ていただいているのがタイムスケジュールです。最初45分でクラシックボディの説明をして、それから、ラウンドネックですね、丸襟の、説明をします。それから10分間休憩をとって20分その後、どのように計算するかというのを説明します。その後に、先ほども言ったように袖山の下の部分の袖ですね、そこの説明をして、その後に、質問時間を取ります。
Okay. Next. All right, so you've all completed this. This is the design profile outline. And when we're planning our design, of course, this is where we begin. And I'm just going to walk you through a few things that are important when you're first laying out your design. So this is one, and Quinn, can you go forward? This is the second one, which is Measurement Lady, and there are 3 pages, and the third is just the individual measurement guides, and they tell you how to measure all the different numbers that you see going across Measurement Lady. Okay, so if you can back up, Quinn, Mari, you can walk them through.
Thank you. で、1ページ目です。1ページ目は皆さんもやっていただいたように課題で提出していただいたデザインプロファイルアウトラインというところです。2ページ目は Next please.
Next, okay.
採寸の場所の名前から、どこを測るかということが書いてあります。And next please. で次は、詳しくどのようにして測るのかというのが書いてあります。Done?
Okay. So next. And that the last
I've gone.
Just go back one, was the measurement chart. And so on the measurement chart, you actually would enter your body measurements and then your ease, and then your total measurements are for you or whomever you're making the garment for. And for every one of the different measurements that you see on Measurement Lady, as well as the explanations for how to take those measurements, are written along the side, and you would enter those measurements on this chart. All of these handouts will be available tomorrow after the Zoom meeting. They will be available as a download.
今見ていただいているのが採寸の、表です。左側のボディメジャーメントというのは体の寸法です。その次にイーズっていうのが緩みです。で、一番右端は出来上がり寸法になります。で、この今お見せしているもののハンドアウトですが、後日お届けする形になると思います。
Okay, next. All right, so this is where we begin, and this for the moment is going to be a two-step process where Quinn is going to enter, until we take the break, she's going to enter the numbers as we walk through the design, the actual laying out of our schematic.
で、ここから説明していきますが、順番にクイーンが送っていってくれるので見ていってください。
Okay, so next. Fractions to decimals for the Americans who are in the audience. With us, we use fractions when we lay out a formal schematic, but our calculators work with decimals. And we're working in eighths of inches. So this is why this page is here as a part of your handouts, just to show you what the different decimals will be for the fractions as you're entering the different measurements for your garment.
スケマティックの方では分数を使うんですけれども、電卓では分数を入れないで、分数入りませんので、小数点になります。で、これ見ていただくと分かりやすいかと思います。
Okay, so we also have next, we have just a guide a useful guide that's a translation from inches to centimeters, and that will be a part of the handouts as well.
こちらは計算表にあるのが早見表ですね。これもハンドアウトの中に入っています。
Okay, so next. First thing is to take a measurement, okay? You did your gauge. Everyone's done their gauge. Those of you who are competing will do a swatch again. And the gauge is the total length times the total width and the total width of your swatch. And here we're looking at, for the classic body that we're going to lay out tonight, we have 40 stitches and 48 rows to 8 inches or 20 centimeters.
これがゲージの測り方です。スワッチの端から端までを測って、それで計算します。これの、これは、40目と48段で8インチ、20センチです。
Okay, next. So Quinn, we're going to start to write right now, to type right now. And at the top, then I just not on the schematic at all. I would just like you to write 33 inches. Not there, but up in a clear space that has nothing to do with, yes, 33 inches. Plus, no, just put the quotation marks. Yeah, plus 2, okay, equals 35. Okay, and then we're going to divide that by 2. And that's going to give us 17 and a half. Okay, inches. And put in parentheses 44.5 centimeters. Okay, front and back. Okay, so we took the bust measurement. That's the total bust measurement. And that's the total circumference of the bust measurement around our body. This garment is based on the bust measurement, and we're making it flat. And so the flat, we're going to work it in 2 parts. So we've divided it in half, and so what's most important is that we're starting with 17 and a half inches, which is 44.5 centimeters, front and back.
これがクラシックボディの、スケマティックの書き方です。体の寸法が、バストを基準にしてあります。バストの寸法が33インチ それに、2インチの緩みを足して35インチにして、それで前と後ろになりますから半分にします。それで35割る2で 17.5 インチ、センチにすると 44.5 センチになります。
Okay. All right. So then, what we want to make sure that we put all the measurements on the garment that are based on what we want. We want a garment that's going to be 22 1/4 inches long. That's the ultimate. But we also want to measure each part. So in order to get accurate measurements and accurate numbers for the number of rows as well as the number of stitches, we want to put that gauge in there. So the gauge that we have is going to be, we had 40 stitches for 8 inches, and 40 divided by 8 is going to tell me that I'm getting 5 stitches to an inch. And also that I would be getting 48 divided by 6 would tell me that I'm getting 6 rows to an inch. So I have 5 stitches. We can type this in, 5 stitches and 6 rows to 1 inch.
先ほどのゲージから、1インチの目数と段数を出します。40目で8インチだったので、1インチが5ステッチ、5目です。それから段数の方が8インチで48段だったので、1インチが6段になります。
Okay, so we had 20 centimeters, in that 40 stitches, and so that would be 10 centimeters here, so it would be 2 centimeters to 2 stitches to one. What would be 1 centimeter would be 2 stitches.
センチメーターで言うと、1センチが2目になります。
Okay, so let's look at what we want to know. We'll start with the widths.
じゃあまず先に幅から、sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Maury.
幅から出していきます。
Okay, so at the bottom, on that very bottom line, yes, above the line, we're going to put 17 and a half. Okay, and we're going to put 44 in parentheses, 44.5 centimeters there. Okay, and so then we're going to multiply that. We're going to just say times. Everything that we're doing right now is going to be times 5. And so then we're going to have 88 stitches. Okay, and we're also adding a seaming stitch on each side, which is a selvage stitch. And that's so that we don't take up any of the width of our garment when we're sewing it. And in addition, sometimes we're doing patterns like lace or something with holes or different decorative elements on the side. We really want the sides to look neat. So we always add that extra stitch. In addition, when we're measuring our swatches, we measure inside the selvage stitches on each edge. And the reason is because we're measuring what's going to be repeated across the row, and they will not. They're only there at the end, at the edges, and they're going to be taken up in the seam. So, okay, Mari?
いや、まず先ほど出した寸法で、バストプラス緩みの半分 17.5 インチ、これが 44.5 センチになりますが、これに、1インチの目数をかけて全体で、88目必要となります。その後に、縫い合わせるためにそれぞれ両側に1目ずつ、シーミングステッチとも言いますがサルベージステッチ端目ですね、これを足すことになります。で、先ほどスワッチを測った時に端から端までと言ったんですが、この端から端までというのは両サイドの端目を入れないで端から端まで測るということです。
Okay, so at the bottom, Quinn, we also want to add plus 2. We have 88 stitches plus 2 equals 90.
ですから今88目になりましたけれども、88目プラス
90
2目
stitches.
で90目となります。
Okay. So that's what we're going to cast on. That we know based on the width that we want and based on our gauge is 90 stitches. So we're going to go to the next width measurement, and that's going to be our cross back. That's shoulder to shoulder. And that's going to be 13 and a half inches, 34.5 centimeters. So on that line in the middle, just above that, Quinn, we'd like to write 13 and a half, and then 34.5 centimeters. And when we multiply that times our 5, then we'd like to write 68 plus 2 equals 70 stitches. Okay? Yeah.
で次に、背肩幅の寸法 13.5 インチ、これは 34.5 センチメートルになりますが、これに、1インチの分5目をかけます。そうすると68目になります。それに両サイドの、シーミングステッチを足してトータルで70目となります。
Okay, so right away we can see that we're going to take out between, as we shape the armholes, we're going to take out 4 inches. So that's going to be minus 2 on each side, or 5 centimeters on each side. So Quinn, just as it starts to be where the armhole starts to shape, can we put minus 2 inside where you see the garment? Come down, yeah, and inside, right inside there, right where, yep, Can we put minus 2 on that side? Minus 2 cm, and on the and 10 stitches. Just beneath or just above it, you can write 10 stitches, yes. And on the opposite side, let's do the same thing. So we know we're going to be taking out 10 stitches, 20 stitches actually total. Yeah, right there. We're going to put minus 2 again, and minus 2 centimeters, and it's going to be 10 stitches. It's just 10 stitches. Okay, all right. So we got them both. Okay.
It's not a 2 inches.
Pardon me. What am I saying? We are taking out 4 inches total.
4 inches, so minus 2 inches.
On each side, yes.
Each side. It said
Yes.
2 centimeters.
Yeah, sorry. It's going to be 5 centimeters, sorry. Yes, so it's minus 2 inches, 5 centimeters.
Okay. So, 下の 17.5 インチから、背肩幅を引くと4インチになります。4インチ少な
Can you
くす
say
る。
that again, please?
Yeah, you've got it, minus 2 inches. And instead of 10, yeah, minus 2 inches, and it's 5 centimeters.
でそれぞれから
In
2インチ
parentheses, 5 centimeters, 5 cm, okay, and then 10 stitches. Just put 10 stitches, it's fine. Okay, sorry, Mari.
That's
Just
okay.
want to get this all straightened out.
Yeah. でそれぞれから2インチずつ引きます。5センチずつですね。それですから2インチかける、5目でそれぞれ10目ずつ減ります。ですから90目あったものが、背肩幅の幅で70目になります。
Okay, and you can just say each side, 2 inches, 5 centimeters, 10 stitches each. So you can just put after 10 stitches each side. Yeah, that's each EA and then side. Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah,
all.
Shirley, since you're making corrections at the bottom, change to 88 inches. Take the inches off of the 88 on the right side at the bottom.
Okay, so it should be 88. That should be 88 on the right side, all the way over on the right, Quinn. 88 stitches. Yeah, there you go. Should just be 88 plus 2 will be fine. Just if you erase the,
Yeah.
88 plus, okay, that's great, that's fine. Quinn doesn't knit, so she's helping me out here tonight, so that's great. Okay, so there you go. So this is what we call a working schematic, and that is that everything we need to know or we want to see at a glance should be on this schematic. It's not the schematic that will be your formal schematic that will only have centimeters or inches in it, but it is your schematic that as you work and you're trying to remember everything that happened, then you will be able to see exactly what was going on. So here we're still working on widths, and we're going to move up to the top. And once we've taken out those 2 inches on each side, and we've come from 17 and a half to 13 and a half, or from 44.5 to 34.5 centimeters, then that's all we've got to work with. And within that, we have to have a neckline and we have to have 2 shoulders. So for the neckline, I'm going to take out 50% of that total cross back. And so we've got 13 and a half. I'm going to divide that by 2, and I'm going to have in the center of that line at the top, Quinn, just move over a little bit to the center. Yes, it's going to be 6 3/4 inches there. And that's going to be 17 centimeters. Right. So now we've taken 6 3/4 from the 13 and a half. So we have 6 3/4 remaining. We're going to divide that by 2 and put each half on either side for the shoulders. So that means in the shoulder, which is past that notch on both sides, right, you have the center is the neckline, and then on the right-hand side, above the shoulder, we're going to write 3 3/8. Yep. And that's going to be 8.5. Just know 3, just because you use okay, so we'll go to decimals. Let's say 3.375. Yep. And then that's 8.5 centimeters. cm. And the same on the opposite shoulder. Yes? Okay. Great. Okay. Good, very good. So now beneath those, let's put some numbers. Let's put 34 stitches under the center, which is the actual neckline. Yes, we have 34 stitches there. And then we're going to have 17 under the shoulder, under both, no, not there, just 34 stitches, that's good. And then the shoulder, yes, 17, let's put 1 plus 17. 1 plus 17, okay, stitches, STS. And then on the opposite side, the same. Let's put 17 plus 1, yes, over there. 17 plus 1, STS. Great. All right, so now we start to see what our garment is going to look like in terms of the number of stitches, in terms of the number of stitches that have to be decreased to get to the cross back. And we also see that we have a selvage on each side. So when we're saying we have 88 stitches plus 2 selvages, we know that there's going to be 1 on each side. We come into the cross back, and we have 68 stitches plus 2 selvages, 1 on each side. We come onto the shoulders, then we have 1 selvage at the very edge and then 17 stitches. Then we have 34 stitches in the center. Then on the opposite side, we have 17 stitches remaining plus 1 selvage, which is a total of 18 stitches on either side. And each of those, all 3 together, they have to add up to the total that we have there, which is 70 stitches, and they do. Okay, Mari, I'm sorry, but that's it.
That's okay. 今ちょっと見ていただいた作業なんですけれども、このスケマティックは段数と目数が入っています。こういうものをワーキングスケマティックと言います。通常のスケマティックというのはただ寸法だけが入っています。それで今これから皆さんに提出していただくスケマティックはワーキングスケマティックといって段数とそれから目数が入るものなんですが、今の計算を、背肩幅 13.5 インチで70目というのを出して、それから上の説明になります。これは、袖、ごめんなさい、襟幅とそれから肩幅を入れます。まず最初に肩を、ネックの幅を6と4分の3インチ、これが17センチになります。これを目数5目イコール1インチで計算すると34目になります。で、この34目、最初かな。まず寸法からいきますね。13.5 インチから、6と4分の3を引いて、両肩なのでそれぞれの肩の寸法を出すには、それ出た答えを2で割ります。そうすると 3.375 インチ、8.5 センチずつになります。で、これにそれぞれゲージで出した5目をかけて、目数を出すわけですけれども、両肩それぞれ1目ずつサルベージステッチが必要となります。ですから、1、これがシーミングステッチ、サルベージステッチですね。プラス17目、それからネックの34目があって、また反対側の肩に17目プラス1目となります。で、この目数全部を足したときに70目になるようにします。Okay.
Okay, so now let's start to look at the lengths. So we have 6 rows equals 1 inch, and we want a total of 21.25 inches before we get to the shoulders. We're going to shape the shoulders here as well. But so we're going to put on that line that's in where you have your cursor, Quinn. Let's move it into the line, the next one over, the very next line over. Yep, right there. And let's put 21.25. Okay, and then we want 1 inch to shape the shoulder, which is above that. So just moving up on that same line, let's put 1 inch. It has to go up a little further just so that we're above what I was calling bullets when we were practicing. Yeah, there you go. 1 inch. And then let's put in that 2.5 centimeters. 1 inch and then 2.5 centimeters right beside it.
And
in parentheses, 2.5 centimeters beside that 1 inch. Yep, 2.5 cm. Okay, let's come down to the 21.25 and let's put 54 cm just underneath that, which will be fine. In parentheses, or okay, 54, so that they can see it. Yep, centimeters, and put it in parentheses. Okay, that's great. And so on the line that's the total length for the entire garment, we're going to put 22.25 inches, and that's that's the line on the outside, yes. And so we're going to put 22.25 right beside that inches. 22.25 and the quotation marks, and then that's going to be 56.5 cm. Okay, so now let's multiply that and see what we've got. So we have 21.25 times 6 is going to give us 128 rows. So underneath that 21.25, yeah, and that 54, just put 128 rows. Okay? up where it has the 1, just above it, the 1 inch, just underneath that, or right beside it probably, you can get it in parentheses, let's put 6 rows. Could be 6R, yeah, just so that we know. Capital R you could put if you want. Okay, or 6 rows R, okay. So then let's go over to the very last one that we did, which is 22 1/4. Oh yes, and beneath that, let's put 134 rows. Okay, so we know the total length now, and now we're going to break it out for how that garment is going to flow as on the opposite side, which would be on the right-hand side. Okay, Mari?
Yes. まず、総丈ですね。総丈が22と4分の1インチ、56.5センチになります。これにローゲージ、段ゲージですね、6段で1インチをかけて出てきたのが134段となります。それで肩下がりが1インチ取ります。これが2.5センチになります。6段。それから、総丈から1インチを引いたものが21と4分の1インチ、54センチ。これに6段をかけて、この下の段数が128段となります。
All right, so on the opposite side, we want 13 inches from the bottom or from the cast on up to the beginning of the armhole shaping. So just a little further up where your cursor is, Quinn, just go up a little further, but down below that bullet or that notch, yes. And let's just put 13 inches there. And then that's going to be 38 centimeters. cm, small, yes, okay. And then let's go up to the next part, and where we see a long line in the middle, the line in the middle with no little, yes, right there. That's going to be 8 1/4 inches. Yeah, and wherever you can get that in, you can go on the opposite side of it because something else is going to come out there. So it's going to be 8 1/4 inches. Okay, and that's going to be 21 centimeters. Yeah, you can put it underneath. Great. So 8 1/4, let's go down and take a look here. At the 13, where we have 13 inches there, if we multiply that by our 6, that's going to give us 78 rows. So underneath that, let's write 78 rows. Yeah. No, yep, equals 78 rows. Yep, that's great. Okay. And then let's start with the total length up to the shoulders. And that is the 8 1/4, right? And so times 6, that's going to give us 50 rows. So underneath that, you can write 50 rows. Okay, but what happens in there is that we have a neckline that comes in, right? So the neckline, we want a 3.5 inch neckline. However, we're also taking a look at the fact that we are shaping our shoulders, and we're shaping our shoulders over an inch. So we subtract that inch from the total depth of the neck, because as we continue to work to shape the shoulders, the neckline is going to get deeper. So what I'd like to put is on that line up just above where your cursor is and out. Yep, perfect. I'd like to put 2.5 there. 2.5 inches. And 6 centimeters. Okay, and so then I'd like you to go above that, all the way up above. And we know that we're shaping over 1 inch. So we're going to put 1 inch there inside that box, just 1 inch. and let that be 2.5 centimeters. Okay, so we're going back down here, and we've got 8 1/4 for our total length from the beginning of the armhole shaping to the beginning of, to the shoulder. And now we're taking out 2.5 inches for the neck. So between the beginning of the neck and the end of working even and the beginning of making our neck, we want to work 5 3/4 inches. So that's 8 1/4 minus that 2.5. So that's going to give us 5 3/4. I'm sorry, Quinn, come down and write down, yeah, keep going down. And in the next box, up, go up, no, go up. And right here where there's nothing written in there, come over a little bit. Yep, right in there. We're going to put 5 3/4 inches, and then we're going to put in parentheses 15 centimeters. So we can multiply, do some multiplication here now. And we're going to say 5 3/4 inches or 15 centimeters. We're going to have 34 rows there. So underneath that, you can put 34 rows. And where we have the 2.5, just above that, the 2.5 inches, yes, just beneath that, we're going to put 16 rows. Yeah, 16 rows will go in there in parentheses. And if we look at that, if we multiply that 2.5 by our 6, it's going to give us 15 rows. But rows we like to keep in pairs, odd and even, or odd and even, odd and even. So we're going to round up to 16. At the top, where we have that 1 inch, we're going to put 6 rows, because we're getting 6 rows to an inch. So just underneath that, or out to the side, yeah, we can put the 6 rows. Okay, so now we have a total of the number of rows lined up on that side and the number of inches, the number of rows, those 3 sections, 4 sections actually, but the 3 sections up to the shoulder will equal the section on the opposite side up to the shoulder. And then we have the 1 inch shoulder shaping. So if you add all those 3 together, then that's going to come out to 128 rows. And then you'll add the 6 to that. Also, if you subtract the number of rows, which is 50, from the number of rows that you work before you come to the neckline, then it's going to be 34, and then 16 for the neckline shaping, and the 34 and the 16 will give you that 50. So we look at this and we've got everything filled in as a beginning based on our gauge of 5 stitches and 6 rows. Okay,
Charlie, there's been a request to just make the type slightly larger with the rows, only because people can't see.
Okay, so we need to make it all bigger if we can, Quinn. So that we
specifically
can,
on the right side, right?
where the rows
body.
are. Okay,
Yeah.
great, thanks.
それではね、右側の段の方ですね、高さとか丈の話ですけれども、裾からアームホールのところまでが13インチです。これが38センチになって、1インチが6段ですから、計算すると78段になります。その後、アームホールの丈が8と4分の1インチ、これが21センチで、これも計算すると50段になります。それで、肩下がりは1インチですね。これは左右同じにします。それでここのネック、襟の高さですね。襟の高さが 3.5 インチで、後ろ襟が1インチあって、それ足す 2.5 で全部で 3.5 インチになります。で、これもそれぞれ段数をかけて必要な段数を求めます。で、この時に、段は往復するので、ぐ 偶数になります。それでその偶数にしたときに、全部の場所の合計が左右から辻褄が合うように計算してください。Okay, I'm done.
Okay, just letting her, sort of fix that
Okay.
so that we can see. We've got a lot more to do here. Were there any questions?
何か質問はありますか？ Is there any questions from a chart? Chat, not chart.
Okay, so we'll go on.
Okay.
So,
じゃあ先へ進みます。
okay, so can everybody see all the numbers now? Mar, you have to ask them in
日本人の皆さん、数字見えますか？見えなかったらちょっと手を挙げるなり、チャットの方に書き込むなりしてください。
Okay, so the first thing we're going to look at and start to think about how are we going to work this garment. So the first part is that we're going to cast on 90 stitches, 88 plus 2. We're going to work even until the piece measures 13 inches, so that we can see very easily off to the right on our schematic. Okay, and then we're going to shape the armholes. Okay, so the armhole shaping is of course going to be over a few inches. Now, how are we going to do that? Basically, we want to shape the armholes anywhere between 1.5 and 3 inches of length. And here, I'm going to choose 2 inches of length for my armholes. And so I'm going to shape my armholes over 12 rows. I want to start by taking out about a 1/2 inch because I want a gentle slope. Sometimes we take out 1 inch, but it depends. I'm going to take about a 1/2 inch out of stitches as I'm shaping over that 2 inches of rows. And then I want to gently curve that. So Quinn, if you can write out to the side, and let's see how we do this. I'm going to do 3, which is 1/2 inch. I'm going to do 3, then 3. Pardon me, I'm going to do 3, then 2, then 2, and then 1, 1, 1. So it's 3, 2, 2, 1, 1, 1. And then we can put a comma between each of those. Yeah, 3, right, and then 2, right, and then 2, right, and 1, 1, 1. Okay, so that's, take one of the commas out in there. Okay, there you go. Okay, so it's 3, 5, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so that was the 10 stitches that we see in the center, or the 2 inches that we're going to take out. We're getting 5 stitches to 1 inch. And so above that, can we just type in armhole decrease? Yeah, ARMHOLE, DEC, just DEC. Okay, there you go. So we got the armhole decrease here. It's okay. And so if we're looking at it and if we were writing it, we would say, when piece measures 13 inches, ending with a wrong side row, we're pairing the rows. On the next row, bind off 3 stitches, and then at each edge, bind off at each edge, okay? Then 2 stitches at the beginning of the next 2 rows, at the beginning of the next 4 rows, pardon me, and then 1 stitch at the beginning of the following 6 rows. Okay, because that's going to be on both sides. So Quinn, can we duplicate that on the opposite side as well? So we see that we have the armhole decrease here, and then on the opposite side of the body, it's going to be the same thing. It's going to be armhole decrease, and that's going to be 3, 2, 2, and then 1, 1, 1. Okay, so what we'd like to do is just generally have a gentle curve, and we bring it in until we have some ones. We try to get 1 or 2 ones, so it just gently moves into the body. The other part of it is on page 77 of Knitwear Design Workshop, you'll see a sloped bind off. And I recommend that, the slope bind off for this kind of an armhole. And that's because when we do a slope bind off, we are slipping. We don't work the last stitch of the row before the bind off. The first bind off row is as it is. But the second bind off, beginning with that, we don't work the last stitch. And what that means is that whenever we don't work a stitch, we just slip it, the stitches will pull first closer together. The columns of rows will also pull closer together because we haven't gone over our needles. When we go over our needles, we add height. That's how we get to the next row. So no height has been added. The little stitch might be a little bit elongated because it's spanning 2 rows. But what it gives you is a gentle curve versus stair steps when you're making height between the different levels. Okay, Mari?
Yes. これボトムアップで編むことになるんですが、90目作り目にします。そのまま、脇下まで編み進みます。この脇下90目あるのを今度はそれを70目に減らすということは両側で10目ずつ減らすんですけれども、この時にだいたいシャーリーのやり方だと高さがだいたい1と 1.5 インチから3インチの間で減らしていきます。それと、最初のバインドオフ、は、だいたい2分の1インチを取ります。この場合5目ですから3目に取ります。そうしてやっていくんですが、今回のこの形の場合にシャーリーは、高さを2インチと想定しました。2インチということは、1インチが6段ですから12段で10目減らすということです。これは片側です。それで、なるべくスムーズなラインで脇下から上がっていくようにするために数字の並びを工夫します。10目、これを3目バインドオフして、次に2目減らして、2目減らして、1目を3回繰り返します。こうすることでスムーズなラインができます。でなおかつ、普通の伏せ目をすると階段状になるので、KDW の77ページに載ってる、スロープバインドオフというテクニックを使って減明していきます。やり方は見ていただくと分かると思うんですが、全部を編まずに途中で引き返して1目編まない途中で引き返して編んでいくことによって減明のラインがきれいにカーブになります。Okay.
Okay. So now we take a look at that and we see what we've done. We've used up 12 rows, right? And we've taken out 20 stitches. So now, how many rows do we have left? We started out with 34 rows between the beginning of the armhole shaping and the beginning of the neck shaping. We used up 12 of those. So now we're going to let ourselves know that we are going to work 20. First of all, we'll say 70 stitches remaining because we end it with by saying bind off, 3 stitches once, 2 stitches, 4 times, and then 3 stitches 6 times. And then we're going to say we're going to say that remaining stitches are 70. That's 68 plus 2 now because we've taken those stitches out. And we're going to work.
Should I be typing this?
Pardon me? No, not yet. I'll tell you. We'll be working even on these 70 stitches for 22 more rows because we've used up 12 of the rows. And then we reach the neckline. Okay, Mari, you want to?
Yes. そこまで脇下の減明が終わりましたら、22段、増減なしで編みます。それで、襟の、減明に入ります。
Okay, so now when we get to the neckline, because it's a high round neckline, we're going to take out 1/3 we're going to divide it into thirds. So we've got 34 stitches. We're going to put a third of those in the center as we bind off, and then we're going to have a third on each side of the neckline. So Maura, you want to translate that?
Okay. You said the 34 divided 3 is?
Well, we
The
haven't divided that. Well, we haven't done that. I'll do it. I'll
you do it.
then,
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So
Yeah.
if we divide 34 by 3,
Yeah.
then of course it's not going to be exactly even.
Yeah.
11, 11, and 11 would give us what we need, or 11, 11, and 12 actually. So what we're going to do is we're going to put the 12 stitches in the center. Any extra stitches when you divide, if it won't divide evenly, we put those in the center. It's usually only one. So here we'll put 12 stitches in the center, and we're going to put 11 stitches. We're going to take out 11 stitches on each side in order to open up that neckline.
これ丸襟なので、基本的平均的な丸襟の方法としては、34目あったら3分の1ずつに分けて、余りの1目を、センターに持っていきます。ですから11目、12目、11目と分けられます。
Okay, so now we're going to do the same thing, and that is to very gently make a curve going along the neckline. First, we're going to work across the shoulder stitches, right? We have 18 shoulder stitches. Plus we have, and this is what lots of people forget, you have those 11 side neck stitches there, right? So you're going to work across 29 stitches to the center, and then you're going to bind off the center 12 stitches, and then work across the remaining 29 stitches. And from that point, the way I'm going to shape my neckline is that I'm going to take out 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. Why? Generally, when you're shaping the neckline, you want to leave, no matter if it's a V-neck or whatever part of a garment you're shaping, actually, you don't want to shape right up to the very last row. You want to shape to the point where it gives you the width that you want, and then you want to work even at that width for at least an inch, so that it's not just making it to the width and then that's the end, for at least an inch, and then you would bind off or do whatever you're going to do. Here, because we're going to continue to work our neckline without working it, because we're going to be shaping the shoulders and it's going to be increasing, in terms of the depth there, we could actually have the decreases, the bind offs going all the way up to the 16th row, because we have 16 rows in this neckline. But I'm going to stop those at 12 as well. And so let's just put down, Quinn, we need to write in what we're doing for the neckline. And so that would be, with the commas between it again, it's going to be 3, 2, 2, 2, 1, 1. One. Yeah, and that's actually going to be on one side, on one side of the neckline. Yeah, bring it down. Yeah, right there is good. Yeah, that's fine. And then on the opposite side as well, it's going to be the same. And we'll see another sheet where this will already be done for you. Yeah, and we can move that out a little bit if you can to the left, because in the middle, I just want to put 12. Just 12. You can put that right in the middle at the bottom. Yeah, just put a 12 there, because that's the first thing that's going to come out. Yeah, that's fine. You can move it to the center. There you go. Okay. So now we're going to work, now we've got 4 more rows that we're going to work even, now that we've shaped the neckline. And we've come across the 29, we've started, we've gone over to the opposite edge, and we've come back to the center neck, and each time, we're shaping until we've gotten it open as wide as we want, which is, 6 3/4 inches. We're working up to the top of those 16 rows. We just continue. And then we're going to shape the shoulders. Okay, Mari?
Yes. 今、増減なしで22段編んで、襟のセンターステッチの段にまで来ました。で、ここの時点で、まず、18目、これショルダーの分ですよね。そこから、11目、襟を減らしていく分の11目を足して29目編みます。それから襟のセンターステッチ真ん中の部分12目をバインドオフ、伏せ目します。その後、29目最後まで編みます。で、この11目、襟ぐりの11目は、3目、最初に3目バインドオフから2目、2目、1目、1目という形でバインドオフします。襟の高さっていうのは、3.5 インチあるんですけれども、全部使わないで、だいたい12段ぐらい使って、最終増減なしで編むところを1インチほど残します。ですからカーブがあって、それから1インチほど、増減なしで編んで、肩の終わりのところへ行くという形になります。
Okay, and so the next-
Shirley,
Yes.
there's just a mistake in when Quinn was writing the neck side bind offs, decreases. There should be another 2 in there to equal 11, correct?
Yeah, so we have on the neck, we have 3 2 2 2. Yeah, we have
Yeah.
another, yes,
On
sorry.
both sides.
Yeah, on both sides. Sorry.
All right.
I probably told you the
The-
wrong amount.
The other knitters all caught it.
Oh,
Not
good.
me.
Okay, great. There you go. Yeah, there you go. And on the opposite side as well. Great. Okay, great. Yeah, just 3 2 2 2.
訂正が入りました。
11
襟
coming
の
out.
と
So
ころの
3
減
7
目
9
は
and then 11. Okay, yeah.
3目、2目、2目、2目、1目、1目でトータルで11目となります。
Yeah, in a real class, and if we were in a real class, you guys would be giving me these numbers and writing, then I would be just telling you and you'd be telling me what to put on. But here we're just sort of trying to fill it in so you understand. Okay, so then we're now at the shoulders, and we're going to shape the shoulders. We have 18 stitches remaining, 17 plus 1. So we are going to bind off 6 stitches 3 times. If you're not going to bind off, meaning if you want to do a 3 needle bind off, for example, then you would be using decreasing short rows. So then you would do 6 wrap and turn, 6 wrap and turn, 6 wrap and turn. So your stitches would remain live, and in that way you would be able to do a 3 needle bind off. Okay, but so here we're doing 6 6 6.
肩の減目ですが、スロープを作るときには、6段ですので、6目ずつを3回繰り返します。これはバインドオフで伏せ目していただいてもいいし、引き返し編みで、後から、3ニードルバインドオフという形で、つなげても結構です。
Okay, so the next thing we would be doing is the back neck, the back of the garment. And for that, we would work exactly as we have worked the front up to the beginning of the armhole shaping. Then when we finish the armhole shaping, because we don't have a neckline, we would be working 50 rows even in the back. And then we would be shaping the back neck and the shoulders at the same time. Okay, Mari, you want to?
次、後ろ身頃なんですが、後ろの襟の深さと肩の、肩下がりの寸法が1インチで同じなので、そこのアームホール丈が終わるまで増減なしでまっすぐに編みます。それから、後ろの襟にかかります。
Okay, so the way we're going to do the back neckline is we'll start by taking out 1/2 instead of 1/3 of the neck and stitches. And so we have 34. If we divide that in half, then we're going to have 17, which means that we wouldn't have the same number on each side. So we'll take out 18 stitches in the back neck, and that would leave us with, what, 16 stitches remaining that we will place on either side. So we would have 8, and then 18, and then 8, in terms of the way we would be working the back neckline. And so we would work across on the back the first 6 stitches, and then we would bind off, the first 6 stitches at the shoulders. We would work across 12, right? We've got 2 more bind offs, so that's 12 stitches. And then we would work across 8 more, right? So that's 20. And then we would bind off the center, which would be the center 18, and then work the balance of the row and come back, binding off the 6, and then on that side of the row going back and binding off the let me go back and retract for a moment. We have to decide how many steps we're going to want for our neck bind off. How deep do we want that neck? Okay, so we want the neck to be 1 inch. So we're going to we have 1 bind off that's going to be a center bind off that's 18. So we'll put 4 and 4 as 2 levels on each side. So it would be, working across to the center 18, binding off the 18, coming back and working 4, and then working 4 again, so that we would get, and using the slope bind off again, so that we would get a very nice, neat back neck shaping too. Mara, you tell them that, and then I want to tell you what about the back neck shaping, how it doesn't have to be all that deep and what it's for. So go ahead, Mara.
Okay. いや、次、後ろのネックの減明の方法なんですけれども、これは肩と同時に行われます。ですから、肩のバインドオフと、それとネックの、減明と一緒にやることを気をつけてください。それから、後ろのネックのカーブの作り方は、これは2分の1にして、センターステッチを2分の1取ります。それで、その残った2分の1をまた半分にして4分の1ずつを両側に分けます。ですから、あと、34目のうち8目、18目がセンターステッチ、それから8目となります。それから、同じくスロープバインドオフでカーブをつけていくわけですが、この最初の8目と終わりの8目は、これは4、4で分けていきます。Okay?
Okay, so the reason we're shaping the back neckline is, unless we want a design element where we want a deep neck, a deep back neck, and that could be a deep scooped or a V or whatever. But generally, we're shaping it so that it follows the natural curve of the body. So, our bodies are not straight. We just need a little curve that goes down beneath the back neck bone. And many times, if you are doing a 3-needle bind off where you're not pulling up a lot of fabric, that will be sufficient. Where you simply need that extra row, which is about 1/8 of an inch, to just have the shaping behind the back neck. So here we've made it shallow, but we've actually, we've done a shaping so that it does follow the body.
デザイン的に後ろの首の形をしないで、ボディに合わせるということであれば、肩のところを、3ニードルバインドオフでやった場合、後ろのネックのところがちょっとだけくれるんですね。それでもくれないよりは、形がきれいに体に沿うと思います。
So also for shaping the shoulders, it depends on your gauge, how many steps you want in your shoulder shaping. The shoulder shaping is usually takes place over about another inch. It's what we call going to the raglan depth, because the raglan it doesn't use an armhole; it goes directly to the neck. In terms of the way the right angles are on the shaping for that, but you can shape your shoulders in 2, 3, or 4 steps. I'm using here a worsted weight. I'm saying I'm using a merino worsted weight, and I'm on a size 7. That's what I'm writing on my notes. And so for that weight, which is about 5 stitches to an inch, that is why I'm binding off in 3 steps.
Are you talking about the armhole?
I'm
First
talking
armhole.
about the shoulder sloping, how binding
Yeah.
off with a shoulder slope.
Shoulder slope. Okay. 毛糸の太さによって、違うんですが、このセーターの場合、極太毛糸で7号針を使って、アメリカの7号針を使っているので、この3ステップ、6段ですね、の、傾斜をつけました。
Okay, so Quen next. So we're done with this. And does anyone have any questions on that? We're just going to show you what the actual neckline looks like and front and back necklines. But if anyone has any questions?
質問ありますか？なければ先へ進みます。
Okay, so that's the layout of your classic body. The next slide, please, Quen.
Sorry, I've just got to erase all the things on it. Otherwise, it's going to be all over the presentation. 1 moment.
Okay. Great. All right, so this is the neckline, the front neckline. And so we see the division, how that we've divided in a third, a third, and a third. We see 12 with that extra stitch in the center. We see 11 stitches being taken out on each side. And here we see, how we're working odd numbered rows, even numbered rows. And we see the number of decreases. We see how we're working even after we finish decreasing. And then we see how we're shaping the shoulders.
でこれが今まで説明してきた肩と襟ぐりの減明のチャート図です。
Okay, and then next, Quinn. Okay, so this is what you saw. We did a half in the back, a half the number of stitches, and then a quarter on each side, 50%, and then 25%. And in the front, we saw a third, and a third.
これが説明してきた分の前襟が3分の1ずつ分けて、後ろ襟がセンターが2分の1で両側で4分の1ずつに分けるという形です。
Okay, next slide. And this was the back neck. And so we see as we go across on those 70 stitches, we see exactly how everything lays out with the arrows below. And these will be in your handouts. And then you see the 18 stitches coming out. You see the 4 stitches and the 4 stitches on either side, which is 8 stitches coming for that total count of 34. And then you see the shaping of the shoulders with the 6, 6, and 6, meaning 18 on each side.
でこれが後ろ襟と肩の減明のチャートです。
Okay, so next, Quinn. Thank you. All right, so another part of this, of when you're thinking of laying out your garment, is thinking of the pattern flow and understanding the pattern flow. So we've looked at our gauges. We've looked at the numbers in terms of the measurement numbers that we need in order to have the ease and everything that we want. And now we need to overlay that with how is our pattern going to flow. And that means that when we break the pattern at the sides, we always want the pattern to look like it's been running. If it's going to run together and you're not going to put another pattern to run up the sides, we want it to look like it's being made in a circle. So where will we break the pattern at the sides? What will happen as we break the pattern to make the armhole shaping? What will run along the sides of that armhole? Because that's a very long seam, from the underarm to the shoulders. What will the eye see when they look at that? What will we have as our patterns coming together at the shoulders? All that is very important. Here, I have an 8-row repeat and, an 8-stitch repeat and 14 rows. So Mari translate and then I'll go on.
Okay. 次にゲージ、それから目数段数、それから緩みの話をしてきたんですが、次に考えなくてはいけないのが、模様の流れです。縫い合わせた時に模様の流れが突然途切れたりするのはなるべく避けたいと思います。それとボディから、アームホールで減目した時の残った模様の流れです。そこの、袖のところの、縫い目というのはかなり長いですから、そこの、模様の流れも考えていかなくてはなりません。
Okay, so next. All right, so this is the way we're looking at pattern flow. Our cast on at 90, and then how do we reestablish the selvage stitch as we take out those 10 stitches on each side? And then knowing that we have what's left after we remove the 10 stitches, which are 68 plus 2 or 70 stitches. And then how do we break the 70 stitches so that they run beautifully along the neckline as well as along the shoulders?
で、作り目を90目にしました。ここのごめんなさい。使う、パターンの、繰り返しが8目と14段です。で、最初作り目で90目作って、それが全部8になってますよね。8目の繰り返しです。それからアームホールで減目されて、それをどのようにレイアウトするか。それからショルダーと肩と首のところで、また形が変わってきますけれども、そこにどのように配置するかの計画の図です。
Yeah, and one thing is that the selvage is going to remain, so, but it has to be the first thing taken out. So, for example, we take out the selvage as 1 stitch, we take out 8 as 8, and then we've got 9 out, and then that next pattern block of 8, one will be taken out as well, which will leave me with 7. But as I move up, that 7 has to become a 6 because one of the stitches becomes a selvage stitch. And so that is all that you want to think through as you plan your garment.
サルベージステッチがここで問題になってくるんですけれども、縫い合わせた場合は数に入らないんですけれども、アームホールの減目の時は数に入って減目されます。それを考慮に入れて計算してください。
Okay, so you see the little dots coming up from that center 8, and then you see that center 8 staying there, but then breaking out with the shoulder and the neckline. You see the little red dots there. So you get a chance to just sort of see the flow, and that's important.
8目の下の8目のところの上に赤い点々が見えると思うんですが、これはその模様の真ん中のラインを拾ってます。その、模様がどのように流れていくかというのが見えると思います。
Okay, so next, Quinn. The other thing is that based on this, on my gauge, and based on the number of inches on my row gauge and the number of inches that I have, Quinn, you can go to the next slide. that I have in this particular, for this particular garment, I'm going to end with 9.5 reps. And so what will that mean for me? And that's what you want to look at on your chart to see if I end with a half rep, what does that mean in terms of which row I'm on? Does it work? And if you're doing a zigzag pattern in the front, most times you'll start with a zig and in the back a zag, so that it continues when it hits the shoulders and moves back down to the front of the bottom of your garment. So this is all that I'm telling you.
それでこの模様の流れというのはうまく割り切れるといいんですけれども、例えば欲しい寸法の時にリピートが2分の1だけ残った場合どう処理するか、それからジグザグ模様の場合、前のジグザグと同じにすると肩のところで合わなくなってくるんですね。それをどう処理するかというのは、このプランの時に考えて、答えを出しておかなければいけません。
Okay, so next. Quinn, next slide. There you go. So here's the run out of what we did. You see exactly the layout of the body, where we started, where we went. On the sides, you see the different numbers of rows that we used, and the numbers of stitches that came out in the body, in the back, and the front. So this is just a visual representation of everything that we walked through.
今まで見て説明した結果の形がこのワーキングスケマティックになります。寸法、とそれから目数、段数がすべて入っています。これが皆さんに提出していただくことになるワークシートじゃなかった、スケマティックになりますのでよく見ておいてください。
Okay, so next. Okay, this just goes on to explain that this will be a part of your handouts. It's a continuation of everything that we did as we worked through that garment body.
それが計算で使った数字になります。
Okay, and Quinn, again, you can walk through the next one to the next one. Yeah. All right, so here, included in your handouts also, you heard me talk a little bit as I would say cast on, when work even for 13 inches, then, begin armhole shaping, all that. We have a template in the handouts that that will be available after tomorrow afternoon, after we finish the next meeting. And this is just a page that will guide you through how to write a pattern for this particular garment. And Quinn, just go to the next page, if you would. Okay, so it takes you all the way through, and then just go to the next page, if you would. Yeah, and so this continues, and then when that's done, if we go to the next page, then there's an answer sheet, a series of answers, and then to the next page. Yeah, and so everything is there in blanks. You can make copies of those, and then if you want to go back and check what we've done, then you have the answers. You can try writing it all in on your own, and then look at the answers, and you can do a double check. Okay, Mari.
後日差し上げるハンドアウトにこれ全部入ってるんですけれども、ご自分で全部確認しながら書いていただいて、結果的に1枚の紙に、書く形になります。こうすれば後から分からなくなってもどうしてこの数字が出てきたというのが分かるようになっています。
Okay, so the next, Quinn. All right, so I just want to say that that's the classic body, and if you're doing drop shoulder, and this is just like something to say that's makes you understand that you have all the techniques to be able to accomplish that. And for a drop shoulder garment with a sleeve that will not have a cap, we're going to go over the sleeve in the next part. But you can see the body there in the purple, and that is just that you would work straight. You will not decrease. You would work straight based on the bust measurement. Total bust circumference divided in half, up to the beginning of the neckline. And so that's why it would drop off your shoulders versus being shaped to go down to the shoulder width. Also in the measurement guide, where you have the measurement lady and then you have the list of all the ways to take the measurements that correspond to the numbers on her body, there is something that tells you how to measure for a drop shoulder garment.
今見ていただいているのがドロップショルダーのスケマティックです。アームホールの弦目がなくてまっすぐ上がっていって、それで袖の方には袖山がありません。
Okay. So next, Quinn. And then the next, there you go. So we have a break if you want a break. If we, took a time, a while to get on. I'm really sorry we had the technical difficulties, but we've made it through. And if you want a break, we'll take a break, maybe 5 minutes. And if not, we'll continue. Mari?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. ここまでで一部が終わりまして、予定では10分休憩を取ることになっているんですけれども、もしご希望があればこのまま続けますがいかがでしょうか。
Does everybody want a break or not?
Yeah, sure. I think people want to continue.
Okay, all right, let's keep going. All
じゃ
right,
あこのまま続けます。
okay. So let's go to the next one. All right, so this is the increase-decrease formula. And so I just want to walk you through it. And this is found on page 70 in Knitwear Design Workshop. What I'd like you to just look at here is an understanding of what the different parts of the division are. And you've all gone through this in 3rd grade probably. But just when you see the division sign, what's on top is the quotient or the answer that you're going to get. And what's on the inside of it is the dividend, and that's the number that something's going to be divided into. And then you have the divisor on the outside. So you're going to hear some of this terminology. Whatever's left over in math is a number. In the formula, increase-decrease formula, it's your stitches. It's going to be the number of stitches that will not be worked until the end of the row. So that's why we sort of want you to walk through this. Okay, so if I look at, we're not going to go forward for a moment. If I look at needing 16 stitches added into 117 stitches. All right, so I've got 117 stitches on my needles. I got to add 16 stitches in. How do I do that? And so we see that it's going to be 16 will go into 117 7 times. I have a remainder of 5. All right, so then I will always be subtracting the remainder from the divisor and adding a 1 at the top. That will let me go across the row or up the side if I'm doing rows. I go across the row if I'm doing stitches, go along the side edges if I'm doing rows, to use intersperse, stopping at the first number of stitches and then at the second number, just one stitch more. So 7 8 7 8 across the row. And at the bottom, it tells me the number of times. So the divisor, the remainders become the number of times that we're going to repeat the answers above. I have arrows drawn to let you know which quotient at the top corresponds to the number of times you're going to work. I say that the arrows cross so you remember that it's the number of times something's going to happen. So it would be after, you would be adding 1 stitch, increasing 1 stitch after every 7th stitch 11 times, and then after every 8th stitch 5 times. And if you take a look at the math check, you'll see that 7 times 11 will mean you will have gone across 77 stitches. And then 8 times 5 will let you know you've gone across 40 stitches. And so you will have added the 16 stitches over that 117 stitches. So that's precisely what that means. All right, Mari, you want to translate that?
Okay. これは弦目と増やし面の計算方法です。117目に16目を足す場合にどうするかという計算の例です。117目を16でまず割っ て、7取れて、112で5目余ります。ここまでは普通の計算ですよね。これを、目数単数に計算する場合は、この5目を、16から引きます。そうすると11という数字が出てきます。それから7に1目を足して8目というのが出てきます。これを8目と5、それから7目と11というペアにします。で、5と11というのは回数になります。で、これをどういうふうに見るかというと、7目の後に1目足すことを11回、8目の後に1目足すことを5回すると、117目に16目、増し目ができるということです。で、この計算の、計算の検算は 7×11、これが77、8×5、これが40、足して117目で、11回と5回で16回の増し目になります。Okay, thank you.
Okay. It's a very powerful tool it's a great tool to have in your design bag. And
これは
so,
よく使います。
okay, so let's move to the next one. Next slide. Thanks, Gwen. Okay, so here, I'm calling it a tool. It's a ratio tool. And it's we're looking at a body gauge of, I've given you 9.12 stitches to an inch, and the border gauge of 7.73. And then we're calculating, and we're seeing that we need to increase 15 stitches from going from the border to the body. And that what that means is that many times you will have a different gauge if you're going to add a ribbing or add whatever border to your body than you will in the body of the garment, and what happens when those two patterns come together. And oftentimes in the middle of your pattern, your garment, you may want to change to, and for your design elements, to different stitch patterns, but you may be getting different gauges. How do you have to increase or decrease and do it efficiently and effectively in the easiest way possible? And this is really one of the simplest ways.
これが、割合の、式っていうことを言ってるんですが、これも掛け算と引き算とだけですね。例えばカフツが11インチあったらば、ゲージで、1インチのゲージ、違うゲージをかけて、それから引くと15目の差が出てくるということを見つけて、それを今ちょっと前に説明した方法で、どうやって増し目、それから減目するかというのを出します。
Okay, so remember we want the same width, but we've got two different gauges. That's pretty much what's going on. Okay, so next Quinn, please. All right, so here's our example, and I'm going to show you two ways to do this. This is a little more involved, and this gives you the full understanding of it. And then the second way is just a simpler, an easier way to do it. So here we've got the 15 stitches that we want to divide into the 85 to see how I'm going to increase those stitches evenly across the row. And so 5 times 15 is 75, and we have 10 stitches that are going to be remaining there. So at the top, I'm going to put my 1 to add, so I get the 5 and the 6 going across the row. But we're going to have to think about what happens at the beginning and at the end of the row. How do we don't want to go to the very last stitch, which this will take you to. It's fine on rows, but on stitches that can, you don't want to end making some kind of an increase or decrease on the last stitch. So I'm going to take one of the intervals. Each time you stop, whether it's every 5th stitch or every 6th stitch, I'm calling those intervals, interspersing intervals. So I'm going to take one of those and I'm going to divide it in half. You see the 6 at the top where I've divided that in half. So I have 3 stitches that I'm going to put at the beginning, and I'm going to leave 3 stitches at the end. Mari, should I keep going?
Yeah, you can go ahead, go, yeah.
Okay. And so now I'm taking a look at that, and I'm saying, okay, so I'm going to take 1 away from that 10, because now I'm only going to have 9, because I'm taking that one of those 6s out. And each time I do that, I'm going to also, over to the left, you see I'm starting with 15, I'm taking 1 out. So now I'm down to 14. So I'm looking at the 9, and that would be every 6th stitch 9 times, every 5th stitch 5 times at that point. And I'm saying, how do I get a common denominator, meaning a number that will divide into both of these? Because that's going to make the difference. So I take 2, I borrow 2 from the 5 side, and I subtract that again. That lets me know that I'm down to 12 that I have to think about, because I had 15, but you can see I've taken 1 out from one side, one interval, and 1 out from the other. But now I have 9 and I have 3. So 3 will divide into both of those. And the moment I find that number that's the common denominator, I know that that's the number of times I'm going to repeat this ratio. So the ratio is 3 times I'm going to go across 6 stitches, and then once I'm going to go across 5. 6 increase, 6 increase, 6 increase, 5 increase. And then again, 6, 6, 6, 5. And so as I'm looking at this, it's a 3 to 1, and I do the math check. I say, always do a math check. So I'm starting at the beginning with 3, then I have 5 times 5, then I have 6 times 9, and then I have 3 at the end. And that will bring me across 85, and it will bring me across and have the fabric running in a very even way. Mari, I'm sorry. But you understand the formula, so you can explain it.
ですね、ここの計算なんですが、結構難しいんですよ。それで私今この時点で正確にお伝えする自信がないので、後ほど、この部分日本語で訳して皆様にお届けいたしますので、ご容赦ください。Okay.
Okay, and so next, Quinn. All right, so then, we continue to see this, and I'm showing you where the common denominator is and all that. So we can go to the next one. Yeah, and again, we still see, because there's more being explained. I explained it all, but in the handouts, it will be explained little by little. Okay, and so then the next page, Quinn. You can go to the next page. Yeah, this is the way it will flow around your fabric. So you see, we borrowed 2 of the 5s, we left them at the end. And we took the 6 and we broke it at the beginning and the end. So we have on the front and on the back, where the line goes across would be the sides of your garment. You see the way that pattern would flow. The pattern of increases would flow around the garment when it's seamed.
増減があった場合に、それぞれのパターンのステッチの数が違った場合、どのように平均的に配置するかという説明、それを計算で出しているのの説明なんですけれども、今見ていただくと平均的に色がばらけているのがわかると思います。
Okay, so next. And so now this is another way to do it. That's easier. And that is that you divide the 15 stitches that we need into the 85. And we see that the very first number of stitches that we're going to come across is going to be 5. So at one end, they're going to be 5 stitches there at the beginning. So we simply subtract 5 from the total, which brings us to 80, knowing that we're going to add those in at the end. when we do the formula, it's going to take us right up to that 80th stitch, and then we're going to have 5 at the end, so it will be even as well. And it's very simple. We have the common denominator that we see. We see the ratio of 1 to 2, meaning 5 stitches every 5th stitch. We're going to do that 10 times, and then it's going to be 2 times 5 to 1 times 6 every 6th stitch. We do the math check, and we have the color coding, so you see what stitch it is and what it's multiplied by, because remember, we're following the arrows. And then when we add it up, it brings us to 80. 5 times 10 is 50. 6 times 5, 30, brings us to 80. And then we have the 5 stitches left over. So this one is much simpler than the last way, and you can do this on anything.
で今見ていただいているのが、これがオプションの2で、オプションの1よりも簡単な方法です。これもまた後で、お知らせします。
Okay, so next. And this is just a run out. If you look at the top, then you'll see example A. You see 15 stitches increased on the 85 stitches that would take us up. That's going to end us with 100. Because we're adding, for each time you see one of the red arrows, we're adding a stitch in. And then the same way, you see it again where we had the 80 that we ended with, and then you see the extra 5 at the very end that we added back in.
これが、見ていただいているのが、ステッチフローと、それから目数の表です。
Okay?
Yeah.
All right, so next, Quinn. Okay. I think you go back one. Yeah. And the same thing for decreasing. And so we have to, what happens when you have to decrease from 100 to 85 versus increasing from 85 to 100? The one thing we have to remember is that when we do the math, and by now you know how to do it, or you're going to be able to look in Knitwear Design Workshop, it's going to take you through it. You'll have these handouts, and you'll get very fast at this. But what happens here is that when I say the 6th stitch, when you get that answer, it actually means the 5th and 6th stitch, because you are knitting 2 together or purling 2 together because of your decreasing. When it says the 7th stitch, it's actually going to be the 6th and 7th stitch. So that means that you would be, when you see 6, it would be knit 4, knit 2 together, because it's going to be that 5th and the 6th stitch as the ultimate stitch that you're going to be decreasing. And when you see the 7th, it's going to be knit 5, knit 2 together, decreasing from 7 to 6. And so we walk through exactly what we walked through before. We have a common denominator, which is 5, which lets us know we're going to repeat this 5 times. The ratio of the 7th stitch side to the 6th stitch side is 2 7s to 1 6. And then when we look down, we see how we would write that, and that's knit 5, knit 2 together. Right, that's the 7. We can do that 2 times. And then knit 4, knit 2 together, which is 6. And then we're going to repeat that 5 times. And what we see is when we reduce the 7 stitches to 6, when we do knit 5, knit 2 together, and then we reduce the 6 stitches to 5 when we do knit 4, knit 2 together. And we look at what that means. It's 6 times 2, it's going to give us 12, because we're repeating that 2 times. And then we have 5 times 1. And then that gives us 17 total stitches that we're going to have on our needles, times 5, because we're repeating this 5 times. So it's going to be 85 stitches that we're going to have remaining.
Okay. 今見ていただいているのが減目の方法です。例えば例では100目を85目にする場合、15目、減らします。この場合計算式は同じものを使います。ただ気をつけていただきたいのは、減目する場合は、6番目で減目するということは5目編んで 6目目と7目目で減目して1目作るということになります。
And this is the run out on that. This is the way you see it when you are, 15 stitches increased, on 85 and then increased on 80. And then we have the decreases. Quinn, can you go to the next one? We should have the decreases here. Okay, keep moving. We should keep going. Okay, and here we go with the decreases that you see. You see if you're interspersing the 2 to 1, 7, 7, 6 all the way across, it adds up to 100. And then when you do the final count, 6, 6, 5, 17, 5 times, it comes down to 85.
でこれが今の減目のを表にしたものです。
Okay, next, let's go through the next one, Quinn. Okay, and so this is a second method, exactly like the second method I showed before for increasing. It's the same for decreasing. We just take out, because we're looking at what's going to happen at the beginning and end of the row, we take out five stitches that we're going to add in to the end. So we have 15 stitches, we're dividing it into 95 instead of into 100. And then you can see at the bottom how we've reduced it. 7 to 6 is like knit 5, knit 2 together, and then knit 4, knit 2 together, reducing to 5. And we see the total number that as we did before. And then Quinn, can you go to the next page? And then you see the way this starts here again. So it's a number of stitches that we decreased across the top. The interspersing ratios add the stitches that as they were, which was 7 stitches and 7 and then 6. And then the beginning stitch count, and then which is 100 here. And after the decreases, when we did 6, 5, 5 instead of 7, 7, 6, and we got to 16 stitches going across, and it ends with 80, and then we add the 5 back in.
今お見せしたのが、オプションの2のやり方です。で、今見ていただいているのがどのように減らすかの表です。
And nobody has to understand all of this right now. It's just running it through so you'd see that there are ways to do increases and decreases as you select the different fabrics and as you look at the different gauges and how those fabrics come together.
今見ていただいててすぐ頭に入る方いないと思うんですが、模様の流れとそれから、毛糸の太さでこれだけバリエーションがあるということを知っておいてください。
All right, so next, I just want to show a practical example. Okay, so practical example is a sleeve. I said we would do a sleeve that would not include a cap. And so we do for the sleeve, we've done the same thing that we did for the body, and that is to look at all the stitches that we need, what the measurements are, and basically this is just a simple sleeve that would be for a drop shoulder piece, and that is that we need at the cuff, we're going to have 10 inches, and at the top, or it's going to be 26 centimeters, and at the top we're going to have 20 inches or 100 stitches. If we just looked at the stitches, we have 50 stitches at the bottom, 100 stitches at the top, which is for the widths. The whole sleeve is going to be 18 inches, which is 46 centimeters, 126 rows. However, we never want to work right up to the top on the sleeve either. We want to work to an area that allows us to be at the width that we need and then work even for 2 or 3 inches. So here we're going to work, of that 18, we're going to work 16 of those, shaping them to get up to our width. And then when we're at the width, we're going to work 2 inches even. And so, and you can see everything is pretty clearly laid out. And then I will show you how to use the shaping formula for that. Okay, Mari?
これが袖山のついてないドロップショルダーに使う袖の、スケマティックです。それで袖口が10インチ、それからアッパーアームのとこですねが20インチになります。 それから袖丈が18インチで、この18インチを全部増やし目には使わないで、最後の2インチは、袖にくっつける部分ですね。2インチは増減なしで編みます。
Okay, so next, Quinn. Okay, so this is the same, but we're going to do them in two different ways. So let's go next to the next page. All right, so this is traditional. This is the very first way. And if you look at it very easily, you have 25 stitches. You had 50 stitches that you have to increase between the cuff and the upper arm, right? We have 50 plus 2 in the bottom. We have 100 plus 2 at the upper arm. We divide that 50 in half, and 25, making 25 stops along the way. That's the number that we will divide into the total number of rows that we're going to work over, which is 112 rows. And this tells me right away, I just take the top number, the bottom number, subtract it, divide it in half, and then divide that number into the total number of rows that I want to shape over. And it says every fourth row, 13 times, every fifth row, 12 times. You're going to increase 1 stitch on each side, okay, at the beginning of the following 12th row, and then blah, blah, blah. All right, now, if I want to get it more into evenly interspersing, then I can say, all right, I've got 13 here. I'll borrow 1 and put it to the side. So I'll have 12, 12, okay? Looking at the math check, we see 13, 4 times 13, 5 times 12. Here, if I've borrowed, then I have 12 would be 48, 5 times 12 would be 60, would bring me to 108 rows, and then the 1, 4 that I took out to hold to the side, I put it back in, and that's it. So that's the first way of doing it. So Mara, if you want to go through that.
これが袖の増やし目のやり方なんですけれども、両側で、それぞれ25目ずつ増やします。計算すると4段目で13、5段目で12回ということになるんですが、これを、やりくりして、それぞれ12回ずつにすることもできます。
Okay, so it's the same thing, the same way of working over and over and over. This is the run of it. You see when we've added 12, and then when we've added the full 25 here. And then let's go to the next page. And so we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to always want to come back to the same side of the garment. So let's go to the next page. All right, so here, now, instead of adding in right rows and wrong rows, right side, wrong side, because what that means is that if you have every fourth and then every fifth, or every fifth and then every sixth, it means that one time you're going to be making the increases on the right side, one time you're going to be making it on the wrong side. Here, and you can use this for anything that you're doing in terms of increasing or decreasing as you shape your fabric, you can take the one set of rows out. Instead of keeping your entire count, right side and wrong side rows, you just divide whatever number of rows you have in half, which means that each time you will come back to the same side of the garment. And what I did here is I always add a 2. So I took the 112 rows that I'm shaping over and divided by 2. I'm dividing the 25 into the 56, which will go 2 times. But because I'm actually taking out some rows, I'm going to say that each time I see a number, I'm just going to multiply it by 2. So it's times 2, which means every fourth row, and then every sixth row, because we add that 1 and multiply that by 2. You could just leave it as it is, and you could say every second right side row, which would be every fourth row, and then every third right side row, which would be every sixth row. So you have the option of doing that as well. and you work it the exact way as you worked before. You do your math check as you did before. And then, Quinn, if we go forward, you'll see the run out on this one. You'll see the way it moves forward. So we see how it worked when we did it traditionally, and we had right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side. And here, we could see fourth, fifth, and here we see everything on either the fourth or the sixth row. So we see everything that we see here is even. And that means we're always coming back to one side. You can set it up to be the wrong side or the right side of the fabric.
最初の計算の方は、表と表で、増やし目して、それから裏で増やし目するというように混ざった形になるんですね。で、2つ目の計算の方法は、表側だけでの増やし目になります。
Okay, so we have one more slide, I think, or series of slides, but for the same thing. So, Quinn, can you move forward? This, I just want to say, it's going to be in your handouts on how to measure, how to calculate yarn. So, can we move forward? And there was a discussion on Ravelry about it as well. This is based on measuring, your swatch and measuring the square inches or the square centimeters. And then there was another one Joan had written about weight, which is exactly what I would be using, that same. So there's a lot out there that can help you to figure out, and this will be in your handouts. You can move forward, Quinn. So this is one of my garments. Mari was the knitter on this one. Mari, you may remember this one.
Yeah.
This was on the cover.
Can I translate about the estimate of the yarn?
Yes. Sorry.
Just short. 毛糸の見積もりなんですけれども、重さと長さでやる方法があるんですけれども、日本人の方は重さの方がいいかと思います。スワッチの重さと、それと大きさを測って、その体積からグラムでどのくらい編めるかというのを、スケマティックの方から、面積を計算してグラム数を出します。OK?
Okay, so also to let them know that everything that I presented is in Knitwear Design Workshop, and that Knitwear Design Workshop is also available as a Kindle that they can download on any of their mobile devices, so they can have that technology, with the techniques with them, and as well, as getting these handouts.
後から後日ハンドアウト差し上げるんですけども、その内容はすべてKDW の本の方に全部入っています。
Okay. Here, they took pictures everywhere, and I was, a little concerned that everything would be okay when they do that. But we plan, and so the flow of your pattern across the body of your garment is so important. When her arms are down, as you see, what you want to see, and this is set in sleeve, is that pattern running and lining up directly across the body of the garment from the sleeve. And that's what we have here. Also, for the neckline, to see that pattern very seamlessly running from the body of the garment into the neckline.
ここの写真で見ていただきたいのは、ステッチの模様なんですけれども、袖とボディのステッチが合っているということです。それからネックバンドのところと、ボディのところのつなぎ合わせのところの模様もきれいに流れています。
Okay, so the next slide, Quinn. Okay, so here we see, the back and the way it flows, the pattern flows. And also, again, we see when she puts her arm down, you get a closer look and you see how that pattern flows. And that's all because of planning, to see how that pattern's going to flow at the shoulders, how it's going to flow at the sides, where it will start to shape the cap, so that when it's seamed, the pattern will flow from the cap, from the sleeve, right across into the body of the garment.
手を下ろした時の袖とボディの模様がきれいに並んでいるということを見てください。それとこれはセットインスリーブになっています。だから後ろのオープニングのところもきれいにパターンが左右対称になっています。これはすべてごめんなさい。すべて 編む前に計画されて計算してきっちり納得してから編み始めるとこういうことができます。
And the last one, Quinn, one more. And so this is really key, and that is the shoulder. If you look at how that line runs directly from the neckline and the shoulder down into the center of the leaf on the sleeve, and how the sleeves separate as they go up into the shoulder and into the neck of the neckline of the garment, that is a part of how everything should be planned with pattern flow.
これ見ていただくと分かると思うんですが、肩のところ、それから袖山をつけたところがきれいに模様になっていると思うんですが、これは編みながらではなくって、編む前にすべて計算されたものです。
Okay, and so I think this is it. Last slide, Quinn.
でこれで終わりになります。
I think did we have another one? And the other one was, I think it was just for the double taper body, just to let everyone know that that's the next series that we will be doing, is how to plan a double taper and how to plan a sleeve cap. Okay, so that's it.
No photo?
No photo of what?
The double taper and the sleeve cap?
It was. Quinn pulled it off, but that's okay.
Okay.
It's the same. Okay.
Okay. 次回はダブルテーパーと袖山のお話になります。
That's coming. That was just like that's coming next.
Yeah.
So if there are no questions, then I'm sorry we were late getting started, and we've come in just a little bit at about 2 hours, and so.
そろそろ時間ですが、質問があったらお知らせください。それとちょっといろいろ問題があって遅く始まってごめんなさい。
And I hope they enjoyed it. This was our.
楽しんでいただけたらよかったです。
Okay. So, good night, everybody.
ではおやすみなさい。
Bye.
退出お願いいたします。ありがとうございました。おやすみなさい。
See the view.